So this story is about more than just how language works. We're diving into maps, politics, and identity, all through this really fascinating linguistic puzzle happening right on the border of Myanmar and Thailand. And trust me, it's going to challenge what you think you know about how languages change. So let's just jump right in with the big question, right? Can a simple line on a map, an international border, actually change the way people talk? I mean, the fundamental structure of their language. It sounds kind of crazy, but the evidence we're about to look at is, well, it's pretty powerful. So check this out. On one side, you've got a Wa village in Myanmar. Their dialect still has sounds that are centuries old. But then, just 12 kilometers away in Thailand, you have a Law village. And those same ancient sounds, they're vanishing. And it's not just sounds, their entire grammar is shifting. You have to think their grandparents could probably understand each other no problem. So what on earth is causing this huge split? All right, so to get to the bottom of this, researchers basically had to put on their detective hats. They started looking for clues in the very fabric of the language. The sounds, how sentences are built, and even the everyday words people use. So let's follow the breadcrumbs. Okay, so the first clue is in the sounds. The dialect over in Myanmar has these really unique consonants called ejectives. The best way to think of it is like a K sound, but with this sharp, pressurized pop of air. It's like a phonetic fingerprint, a real signature of their linguistic heritage. But here's the crazy part. In the dialect over in Thailand, that sound is just gone, wiped out. And at the same time, a complex system of 4 different tones has collapsed into a much simpler 2-tone system, which, surprise, surprise, happens to mirror the national Thai language. All right, if that was interesting, the next clue is a big one. We're talking about a shift in grammar so huge that it's literally been called an earthquake-level change. See, the original blueprint of the language, which you still find in Myanmar, is subject-object-verb, so you'd say something like, I rice eat. But under pressure from the Thai language, the dialect in Thailand is completely rewiring itself. It's becoming subject-verb-object, just like in English, I eat rice. Think about that. This isn't just borrowing a word here and there. This is like rewriting the entire operating system of the language from the ground up. Okay, last clue, and this one is hidden in the words themselves. If you break it down, the ancestral core of the language, words for family, body parts, basic stuff, that's still really strong at about 78%. But look at that 18%. That's a layer of borrowed Thai words, and it's not just any words. It's all the words from modern life, technology, school, government. So what does that mean? It means if you want to talk about your smartphone or your kid's education, you have to use a Thai word. And every time you do that, it pulls the language just a little bit further from its original roots. So let's recap, right? We've got disappearing sounds, grammar that's doing a complete 180, and a whole flood of new words coming in. But the big question remains, why is this all happening on the Thailand side of the border and not in Myanmar? This is where the investigation takes a turn, from looking at what is changing to why it's changing. And we're about to find the real culprit. And it turns out the biggest clue of all wasn't a sound, it wasn't a verb, it wasn't a word. No, the biggest clue was the line itself, that political border. That thin line drawn on a map has become this incredibly powerful linguistic wall. And here's the number that just blows this whole thing wide open. 63%. A statistical analysis found that the political border alone explains 63% of the differences between these two dialects. Now, to put that in perspective, natural barriers, things like mountains or rivers, they only account for 22%. So what we're saying is that politics, in this case, has been nearly 3 times more powerful than actual geography in rewriting an entire language. That's just wild. Yeah, and of course, researchers have a name for this whole phenomenon. It's a bit of a mouthful, border-induced diachronic splintering, or BIDS, but the idea behind it is pretty straightforward. It's the theory that modern countries, with their specific school systems, their own media, and all kinds of social pressures, basically act like giant engines of change. They can take one language that used to be a single, unified thing and actively split it right down a political line. Now, this didn't happen overnight, of course. If you go back before 1948, you would have seen a pretty smooth continuum of dialects all across this region. But then, the border gets officially drawn, and suddenly you have 2 very different paths. Thailand starts pushing for national unity, which means Thai-only schools. Meanwhile, Myanmar, well, through a policy of what you could call state neglect, they kind of ironically just let the local languages be. Fast forward to the 2000s, and what used to be a gentle linguistic slope has become a sheer cliff, right on that borderline. But this isn't just some abstract academic exercise. These changes have a real, profound human cost.
Because when a language starts to disappear, it's not just words that vanish into thin air. We're talking about stories, histories, and entire ways of looking at the world that get lost forever.
And the data on this it's pretty stark. If you look at UNESCO's official scale for language health, the dialect in Myanmar is rated as having high vitality. It's healthy, it's being passed on to kids. But the dialect in Thailand? It's officially classified as endangered. A recent survey found that only 37% of families were still speaking it with their children. That's a huge drop.
And this quote from a young speaker in Thailand just says it all. I understand when elders speak, but I answer in Thai. Think about that. Linguists have a term for this. It's called receptive bilingualism. And what's so heartbreaking is that it's often the very last stage before a language disappears completely. The connection to the past is still there. They can understand, but that chain of passing it on to the future, it's been broken.
So, okay, you might be thinking, why does this one case in this one specific part of the world really matter to the rest of us? Well, because what's happening here reveals these huge universal truths about the connection between our language, power, and our very identity. So let's boil this all down. What are the big takeaways here? First, politics can literally rewrite grammar. Modern borders are incredibly powerful engines for language change. Second, it's important to see that the new dialect in Thailand isn't wrong or broken. It's actually a really clever adaptation for survival in a new world. And third, and this one is crucial, time is everything. A language can go from thriving to gone in just 2 generations. And ultimately, understanding all of this isn't just about documenting something sad. As this quote from the research points out, it's really about empowerment. It's about giving these communities the tools to see what's happening. Because once you understand the forces that are reshaping your language, you get to have a say in its future. You get agency. Which really just leaves us with one final thought to chew on. If a physical border drawn on a map can literally rewrite the rules of grammar, what invisible lines, social ones, digital ones, cultural ones, what invisible lines are rewriting the language that you speak every single day?